I'm tired of losing my friends and my friends getting hurt. I don't know about you guys. I hope you got a lot of consideration for other competitors instead of a lot of balls and no brains. We don't need that in this sport. I've been upside down here at Daytona. I've been upside down at Talladega. And let me tell you, it hurts, okay? These cars just don't drive down the straightaways and flip upside down by themselves. They just don't spin out by themselves. They just don't go flying through the grass by themselves. That happens because we hit people. We run into each other. I'm just as guilty at it as anybody else. I'm trying to change. Earnhardt, Ernie, myself, Kenny, all of us, we've all done it. We're trying to get it to stop. Use your head. If the car does not handle, it's not going to fix itself. Make a pit stop and work on it. Please respect each other. We can do that. There's no problem with that. I think everybody's got more concern for this race than they've had in a long time. And I think I even go out on a limb and say that I think every damn body in this room is running a little bit scared. And I will tell you, my wife is running damn scared. And I think the rest of your wives and families are too. So use your damn heads, please. I think the best
Arnold, Missouri, 1956. The couple of Russell and Judy Wallace have their first child, Russell William Wallace Jr. Born August 14th, he becomes the couple's first child. They would go on to have 2 more sons by the time Rusty was 7, and eventually, all of them were exposed to their father's hobby. Russell would race at the local tracks in his spare time. His primary profession was with his brother, running a vacuum cleaner repair and maintenance store. Eventually, the trio of boys would help their father and uncle's business, but they became fascinated with their father's hobby. The boys became the pit crew, building cars, assembling engines, and setting up the cars. His father's hobby soon went from a casual interest to a serious investment. The team was becoming elite, and Rusty himself began to dedicate more and more time into his newfound passion of racing. He eventually got to the age where he could do it on his own. After his father totaled a car, it led to Rusty and his brothers along with some friends to reassemble it completely. He got the opportunity to race it soon after, and entered into the B main to try and make the show. He would go on to win that event in his first ever race. Rusty ate up in excitement, went right back out there, and completely forgot to fuel the car whilst racing for position. The car eventually sputtered and came to a stop. It was out of gas. Rusty had gotten the taste of what it was like to race, and was ready to do anything to make it. He started building his own cars, and racing all the local tracks, claiming what prize money he could. Eventually ate up more and more of his time, and his uncle at the vacuum store noticed it. He still wanted to instill in Rusty responsibility, and would on various occasions tie Rusty up in work that would hinder his racing efforts. Eventually one day, Rusty was in a hurry and was quickly trying to finish all of his work assignments. As he finished up and got ready to leave, his uncle stopped him and reminded him of a delivery he had to make of a large canister to a client. Rusty expressed his disinterest in wanting to do it, and pleaded to not have to deliver it, but his uncle gave him the ultimatum. Either he does it, or he's fired. Rusty got back in the truck and drove as fast as he could. He eventually flew into the parking lot of the place of delivery, and he got out. When he looked in the bed of the truck, the canister was gone. He then remembered that he had forgotten to tie it down. After he found the canister and came back, his uncle was waiting for him, and gave Rusty the 2 words he was looking for since the day he started working there. "You're fired." Rusty Wallace's vacuum repair career was over, but his racing career had officially started. As Rusty got out of high school and continued to progress his racing career, he decided to enter into one of the bigger racing series for his area. The American Speed Association, or ASA for short, was a national sanctioned motorsports body that was formed in 1968. It was primarily based in the Midwest, with its original headquarters being Pendleton, Indiana. At the time of the mid-70s, the brand new National Tour Series ASA was sanctioning was the most popular form of late model racing in the Midwest. Rusty, who was making a name for himself driving similar cars, decided to give it a shot in 1976. With his first race on record being at Winchester Speedway, Rusty came home 7th in the 66 car. He ran some more in 1977 and won his first race on the ASA circuit in 1978. Rusty kept working hard trying to put things together on the ASA tour, but as fate would have it, he would bump into an opportunity that could be his biggest yet. One day going through St. Louis, he saw in the driveway of a house a large hauler for vehicles that read in pristine paint lettering, Penske. He wanted to know who had this hauler and who the man was. When he met the owner of the house, his name was Don Miller. Don, at the time of the late 1970s, had known Roger Penske for nearly a decade at this point. They had met in the same way Rusty had met Don, by chance. Don was working as a sales manager for National Engines and Parts in St. Louis, and Roger offered Don a job at Penske Racing, which he took in 1972. Miller himself used to race and understood what it took to be a successful driver. When he saw Rusty and realized the passion that burned inside the 23-year-old's heart, he knew he had something. He called Roger and expressed interest in giving this young ASA racer a shot. Penske was hesitant. He had been burned on a few occasions before by stock car drivers, and was primarily an open wheel guy at heart. He also was preoccupied with open wheel in America, having its own inner political strife. But Roger decided to give Rusty a shot, and had him come to a Penske-led test. Wallace showed up to said test and was struck by the entire operation that was persisting. He'd never been outside the short track scene, and he now was sharing track time with Rick Mears. Rusty showed good pace, and they proceeded with some plans to run races in the 1970 Cup Series season. From ASA to Cup in a span of a year, Rusty in his eyes had finally made it.
Because at that time they thought this one is going to be a good one. And the checkered flag for the 28-year-old Earnhardt out of Kannapolis, North Carolina. Winning the Atlanta 500, Rusty Wallace, a big star on the USAC Stock Car Trail, makes his NASCAR debut by finishing second. The most impressive showing.
Driving a number 16 Chevrolet, Rusty in his first start came home second. He was insulated by that year's champion Dale Earnhardt, who won the race, and Bobby Allison in third. This was huge for Rusty. He thought he had proved himself to Miller and Penske, and he began setting a mindset for himself that this was going to be easy. However, they went to the next race. It was an ARCA race at Michigan, where Rusty led 7 laps, but blew up on lap 81. They then went to the Fall Charlotte race, where Rusty got 14th 9 laps down. These weren't bad runs for inexperienced Wallace, but Roger wasn't pleased. His heart really wasn't in the whole stock car bid still. And after 3 races, he called Rusty, and he told him they had had enough. Rusty, took back by Roger's comments, asked him what it was, to which Roger told him he was too inexperienced. Rusty, in a span of 6 months, went from hero to zero, back to his little ASA ride. Rusty was professional, and he kept a good relationship with Roger and Don, but deep down, he was determined to prove them wrong. 1981 was dedicated to reestablishing himself in the ASA and lower local divisions. 1982 was when the fruits of his labor were being reaped. He finished 7th in points for the ASA season, and won again on the national level. It was during this time that he met 2 people that were also trying to make it to the Cup level. Al Kulwicki was a self-motivated man that was trying to do it his way, whilst Mark Martin, similar to Rusty, also got an opportunity at the Cup level, but had also gotten burned, having to basically restart his racing career. The 3 young guns were all being schooled and tutored inadvertently by the White Knight himself, Dick Trickle. 1983 set up the year that Rusty was going to run every ASA race, and he was going to have to go through all 3 of these men to win the championship. In race 1 in 1983, they ran at the Pontiac Silverdome, where Butch Miller claimed victory. Dick Trickle then grabbed race 2 at Nashville Fairgrounds, whilst Rusty had finished 11th and 25th. They went to Atlanta, and racing Alan Kulwicki, he won his first race of the season. Allen, however, led more laps in the race than Rusty. Even though Wallace had won, Kulwicki had actually gained more points. Rusty the next week battled Trickle for the win at Milwaukee, with Dick claiming it over him. Throughout the season, Rusty would claim 2 more wins and 14 top 10s. He would have topped Dick Trickle in final standings by only 23 points. Rusty had finally become champion, and once again was looking for an opportunity. Cliff Stewart, owner of the Gatorade 88, offered Rusty a full-time Cup ride for 1984. Rusty graciously accepted said offer, and officially started his full-time Cup career. Rusty had run some Cup races since 1980. In 1981 he ran 4 races, but only finished 1 race, being a 6th at Charlotte. In 1982 he ran his first Daytona 500, but blew up by lap 40. And in 1983 he only attempted the Daytona 500, but in his qualifying race, he did this.
Flag maybe coming out. We've got another terrible crash. A serious crash again, and turn number 2 has claimed another victim, and there are still cars spinning and crashing. Car number 51 being torn up. 72, Rick Bartow right behind him, and Richard Petty next. They're out of turn 2. Is there contact? Car starts to drift and go away.
Rusty's tumble down the backstretch didn't affect his ASA title run, thankfully. And now, he was focused on his 1984 Cup run. It was a rough rookie year for Rusty, but with little competition, he won Rookie of the Year. He only had 2 top 5s and 4 top 10s. A 4th, surprisingly, at the Southern 500, and a 5th at North Wilkesboro. In 1985, he actually finished the Daytona 500, claiming 8th. And he had back-to-back 5th-place finishes at the first Bristol and Darlington races. Throughout the season, he clicked off 8 top 10s in total. However, Rusty fell out of races much more often, and went from 14th in standings in 1984 to 19th in 85. During 85, though, he got another offer, one from the team owner named Raymond Beadle. Raymond, the previous 3 years, had ran his car with Tim Richmond as the driver, collecting 2 wins, but Tim was leaving to move to Hendrick, and he recognized Rusty as a good replacement, and he requested him to come to the car. The crew chief in the car was to be Barry Dodson, along with his brother John and other various members. The Dodsons and Beatles were somewhat of an outcast group. They were very good at what they did, but never were really respected or recognized for it by the fans. They always had a point to prove, just like Rusty. The perfect pairing.
2 more laps for Rusty Wallace. Less than a mile of racing now for the young driver from Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri. Off the 4th corner, Rusty Wallace wins the Valleydale 500 and his first Winston Cup race ever. He already has his hand outside of the side of the car, saluting and waving.
It only took 5 races for the pairing to win, an accomplishment Rusty had been hunting for since 1980. He was a Cup Series winner now, and it wasn't long before he won again. Overall, with 2 wins in 1986, the 2017 was 6th in final standings. They were ready to put together what could be a title run for 1987. That year was another good year for them. This time, the team finished 5th in points, and pulled off something that had never been thought of at a road course. Rusty was leading late into the race at Watkins Glen, and like everyone else, needed to pit late for fuel. Everyone came in, but Rusty stayed out, pushing hard, running it to the last drop. There was no way he was going to make it to the end, and many of the teams thought they were simply gambling, going to run out of fuel. Instead, they did this.
Wallace's crew waiting for the Kodiak Pontiac. Rusty has just radioed in and told him he is out of fuel.
Elliott is off course, meanwhile, gets back on quickly. Rusty will make a stop here on the last lap of the race. Here he comes in. The red light, the fuel light is on, indicating the car is just almost out of fuel. Coming in quickly. He's got a 20-second lead. White flag is out.
Labonte has not come past the start line yet. Still looking for Terry Labonte.
The fuel in, and Rusty is back out on the racetrack as we have a car. Harry Gant has blown an engine. A lot of smoke from that car in turn number 1. That's you can see it right there. Harry moved to the inside. Here is Rusty Wallace, and he has maintained the lead.
While many had taken advantage of the no pit speed rule, nobody had seen a hot pit like that before. Rusty still won the race by nearly 11 seconds after that, and claimed what would be his 3rd career victory. Rusty would go on to win at Riverside that year, claiming 2 of the 3 road course wins that season. It was a commendment to the crew, as they were the only team actually building cars that were intended for road course racing. Many teams viewed the 3 races on the schedule as a crapshoot, nothing to worry about, but the Beetle team saw it as an opportunity. The only place they couldn't hold up at was super speedways, as they didn't have the ability to make their car aerodynamically effective. They still managed with them, however. Rusty claimed a 7th at the 1988 Daytona 500, and that season lined up to be a breakout year for him in the Beetle team. Rusty would win his first race of the year at Riverside, also claiming the points lead. That led to a 3rd before another surprise win for the team at the Superspeedway at Michigan. As they headed to the fall Bristol race, the 2017 team had the points lead, but the team hit a snag. Before practice on Friday, Rusty was hungry. He whipped together a ham sandwich, to which a passing Richard Petty stopped Wallace and told him not to eat it. He warned him that eating right before driving could lead to choking on the sandwich in a crash. Rusty didn't listen to him. He then went out on track and proceeded to do this.
By far the most spectacular victim of that rough Bristol surface was Rusty Wallace, who cut a tire in just 3 laps of practice and took this wild ride. Now, this kind of barrel roll is usually associated with super speedways. Doctors made Rusty stay in the hospital Friday night, but he was the first driver at the track on Saturday.
Rusty's car landed on the pit wall. He was unconscious, and ultimately not breathing. Dr. Jerry Punch and Dale Earnhardt ran over to Wallace and began to apply a medical aid. Dr. Punch got Rusty breathing again and cut him out of the car to head to the hospital. When he got there, they found that he had a sandwich jammed in his esophagus. And after a stay overnight, they sent him back to Bristol. Rusty was able to run the race, getting a 9th place finish, but with that, he lost the points lead. By Richmond, they had fallen to 119 points behind Bill Elliott in standings, and Rusty made one last charge at the end of the season. He had a pair of thirds at Dover and Martinsville, and then from Charlotte on, he won every single race except one to the end of the season. In between his 4 or 5 victories to top off 88 was a 5th place. That was at Phoenix, where he would lose to Alan Kulwicki. Alan would claim his first victory that day, with crew chief Paul Andrews. Paul actually had worked with Rusty in lower divisions, and recommended Paul to Alan, which became pivotal in Alan's success. Alan had now joined Rusty in being a cup winner. Alan did it his own way, just like he planned, winning for his own team, while Rusty was fighting with his outlaws in the 27 car. Rusty in the end came up 24 points short of Bill, but he was ready for 1989. However, Rusty didn't realize, along with everyone, 1989 would be a year that would change Rusty's life forever. The year started off with an 18th place run at Daytona. He followed it up with a win at Rockingham, collecting the bonus for doing it from the pole. He went to Atlanta and lost an engine, then won the following week at Richmond. It was a very hot and cold season so far for him, and it continued with an 8th place at Darlington and then another win at Bristol, a 9th at Wilkesboro, followed by leading 64 laps and losing an engine at Martinsville, then a 10th place at Darlington. At this point, he was 5th place in standings, heading into the break for the Winston. Rusty had run in NASCAR's proverbial all-star race the last couple of years with modest success, but in 1989 he felt this was his best shot to win the event. Through segment 1, Rusty would win the opening half. The second segment was 50 laps, and during the segment break pit stop, Rusty's crew made an error and put the tires on the wrong sides of the car. Rusty, unaware, drove like crazy to keep any track position he could, and by the end of the 50 lap segment, the crew removed the tires and realized the error. They got on the radio and relieved Rusty of what had happened, and told him to attack. Rusty, assured of the error, was determined to drive straight back to the lead. Darrell Waltrip had won segment 2, and was leading on the restart with 10 laps to go. Rusty, in his much better handling car now, slots back in behind Darrell on the restart, and the battle is on. For a couple laps, Rusty cools his tires, waiting for a moment to strike. Darrell's pushing, trying to get away from the 27 car. As they come to 6 to go, Wallace starts to erode into Darrell's thin lead. Rusty keeps rolling the bottom, whilst Darrell makes the middle work. Coming to 4 to go, he is 1 car length away. It is apparent Rusty is sending it into the bottom to make it work, and the crowd stands cheering Wallace, wishing for him to make the move on NASCAR's most hated driver. For years, Darrell has been seen as a cocky, arrogant competitor who disrespected every NASCAR driver before him to get success. He struck down drivers like Bobby Allison, Richard Petty, and Cale Yarborough, and now once again, he's trying to claim victory to the distaste of thousands. As the crowd cheers on another dive by Wallace in the 3, they watch perhaps one of the most polarizing moments in NASCAR history.
3 miles. And it's close. Ooh! Look at him smoke the tire, and boy, Wallace gives it a try. Wow, he jerked that car trying to get underneath there, Walter, and smoked the right rear tire. He's even down on the apron, man. He tried to get a little bit of dry taste in there. Darrell Waltrip in the 4th corner now. Wallace comes down low again. He smokes the tire. Waltrip loses it as they cut. Waltrip spins it backwards across the grass as they come to the white flag. The yellow flag comes out. The yellow flag comes out. And that means that the lap is not going to count. But can Waltrip get it going?
Darrell's lazy spin through the grass and Rusty's triumphant drive away without a scratch on him sent anger into the hearts of many fans. They felt Darrell had been wronged now by an over-aggressive Wallace, and he was undeserving of any accomplishment. In a span of 15 seconds, Darrell Waltrip went from hated to loved, whilst Rusty went from a plucky young gun to the most hated man in America. Even under pacing, Ken Schrader would ride extremely close to Rusty, trying to send a message of dissatisfaction. The final 2 laps of the race were the most uncomfortable ever. Rusty would claim victory and hot lap the cooldown lap, for he could see Jaws circling him in the waters behind him. As Rusty raced towards victory lane, in front of the packed grandstands, orange and green clashed.
Look, they got a fight going. Where? Get the fight.
Rusty, unaware of the situation, does a TV interview, which only drives the stake further.
I'm Jack Arute here in Victory Lane at the end of the Winston, and Rusty Wallace has won it a little bit controversially, though.
Yeah, you know, it's just this 10 laps is a rough 10 laps, man. You got to drive hard. Darrell was driving hard. I was driving hard. I got up underneath him coming off of turn 4. We just got together. He come down. I tried to help my groove. We both just touched. That's all there was to it. You know, I would have rather finished the race, me winning it, and nothing like that happening. But, you know, it happened this way in 87, and I don't think those guys were doing that on purpose either. And I didn't have nothing to do with doing that on purpose. It was a tough race. I'm sorry for Darrell. Glad we won. I'd like to thank Kodiak, Pontiac, Mobile One, AC Spark Plugs, everybody.
Meanwhile, crewmen are getting put in handcuffs, and Darrell Waltrip is prepping for possibly his greatest interview.
Well, a lot of emotions here in the Tide truck, and Darrell, one of them was anger when you guys got back here. What happened those last couple laps?
Car got I was a little bit loose in 3 and 4, and I guess Rusty saw that, so coming down to get the white flag, he just drove in under me up there and just turned me around. It didn't take a lot, but you know, with some people, you know how they are, so if you open the door, I guess you get what I guess you can expect, something like that. It was uncalled for. I could never race, I could never walk through this garage area having done that to someone, but some people can, and more power to them, I guess.
Darrell, after the race, there was an altercation outside of Victory Lane, both of the crews getting together a little bit. What are your feelings about that?
Well, the emotion's high, you know. This is a show, and it's sort of like the animals are getting a little tense right there at the end of the show, and one of them might bite you. So the tension was high. That was totally uncalled for out there. And the thing that I'm most upset about is NASCAR, first of all, not putting me back in the lead because they went back to the last green flag lap, they said. I was leading that lap. Second of all, that they don't put a stop to something like that. That's the 2 things I think are so wrong. And I guess, you know, we'll have to live with all that stuff. I guess everybody got what they paid for today.
Afterwards, Darrell will be quoted to say, "I just hope he chokes on that $200,000. A line that still lives in infamy 34 years later. After Rusty's TV interview, they would take him to the Speedway Club to introduce them to the winner. However, people were so furious at Wallace, they had to put him in an ambulance to get him there. When they got him to the Speedway Club, he was met by a chorus of boos and hisses. They then put him back in the ambulance and got him to his house. Rusty would sit at home with his family for much of the night, whilst 2 police officers would stay at the house overnight as well. The threat was so severe they had to stay there to make sure nothing would happen. Rusty had just won one of NASCAR's biggest events, but possibly at the cost of his reputation, season, or maybe even his career. Hendrick and Waltrip were threatened many actions to try and reverse the results of the race, but none stood a chance. The 27 crew was now isolated more than ever, alone in a sea of sharks. In the frenzy of everything that occurred, Rusty took some time to drag youngest brother Kenny Wallace to the side. Amidst all the hate and confusion, he wanted to affirm Kenny of one thing: to never let someone change who he is. A profound moment from a guy perpetually seen as arrogant, cocky, and egotistical. For the rest of 1989, besides his team, Rusty would lean on old ASA friends Mark Martin and Alan Kulwicki. It helped him push through the season as he battled Dale Earnhardt for the championship. Rusty, through the fall Martinsville race, had collected 6 wins on the season, and was prepping to take the points lead after the fall Charlotte race. Rusty, uncharacteristic of what people perceived him, used patience to expand his points lead, whilst his rivals did not.
White flag, 1 more to go. Rudd is inside of Dale Earnhardt as they go into turn number 1, and both of them spin. And Jeff Bodine takes the lead. Earnhardt spins along with Ricky Rudd. Here comes Jeff Bodine.
Dale Earnhardt had led 343 laps, and even finishing second would have gained him 33 points on Rusty. Instead, he would lose 3 on the day. A 36-point swing as Jeffrey Bodine would go on the win. Rusty 7th, Dale 10th. Rusty would get second at Rockingham, opening his points lead to 109. That race at Rockingham was claimed by his old ASA friend Mark Martin, getting his first career victory in Cup. The next race after Phoenix, Rusty had a 78-point lead on Martin, 79 on Dale. Mark had actually put together a great run near the end of the season, and put himself in a shot to win the title, but Rusty at the season finale held on and won his first Cup title. He would only beat Dale by 12 points, and through all the hardship, it was the fruit of labor for the team. They had finally won, but again, Rusty's triumph was shadowed by something. This time, a tragedy. Earlier in the race at Atlanta, Grant Adcox would lose a tire and slam the outside wall, taking his life. It is unclear how much any of the teams or drivers knew about this situation. The celebration and the motion of victory made people who had heard the news on TV, and the people who had seen the crash in the stands, hate Rusty even more. One of the main reasons behind the celebration being so exuberant was due to the financial crisis the 27 team had gone through that season. Raymond Beadle was doing everything he could to keep the team afloat. Rick Hendrick, a close friend of Beadle's, eventually had to chip in to save the team. The emotion shown was due to that triumph, that overcoming of odds, but no one saw it like that. It was a sick fate that this 33-year-old driver and his team, unaware of a situation on track, had no fans, no respect, and now possibly no ability to continue. But Rusty did find an opportunity. Rusty, as soon as he won that championship, picked up the phone and dialed the number he hadn't called in nearly 10 years. Roger Penske. He asked him one question: "Do I have enough experience now?" Don Miller soon started organizing things, and by the end of the 1990 season, everything was set up for Penske to buy out the ailing Beetle team. They switched the number to 2, and once again, Penske was in NASCAR. Beetle was content. He had achieved nearly everything he wanted, and 1990 was a solid season for him to go out on. 2 wins, 6th in standings, but it was time for a change of pace. 1991 was the first year of the team to be under Penske. However, the transfer from Beetle to Penske was much more of a watershed moment than thought by Rusty. Barry Dodson, the man who led the crew to so much success with Wallace, did not want to work under Penske. It was nothing against Roger. Dodson simply enjoyed the grassroots, good old boys part of the sport, not the business. He, along with a few other valuable members of the team, left as well. Rusty's new crew chief would be Jimmy Makar. Rusty captured 2 wins again in 1991, including an impressive one at Bristol, coming back from over 3 laps down at one point. But consistency was gone. 10th in standings led to a year where they regressed to only 1 win in 1992. Makar left the team after 91 to get hired by Joe Gibbs Racing and the number 18 car with Dale Jarrett. Again, the 1 win in 92, along with only 5 top 5s, led to the 13th place finish in standings. The team had pretty much become a skeleton now of what they had been before, and Eddie Dickerson and Buddy Parrott were the crew chiefs for 1992. Rusty did get to watch close friend Alan Kulwicki and Paul Andrews claim a title together, but for his team, they needed a reset for 1993. They went down to Daytona to test again, when all of a sudden, Roger Penske called Rusty and Don Miller to have a meeting. As Rusty came in, Roger gave him a piece of news he never thought he would hear twice. He had had enough. 2 seasons of mediocre runs and poor finishes had driven Penske to the point of sale. He offered Rusty and Don part ownership, saying again his heart was in open wheel. Rusty, now a veteran, wasn't going to stand for this twice. He stood up and said to Roger that he wasn't going to give up, that he shouldn't give up. He had fought for a decade to be a Penske driver, and damn it, he was going to be a Penske driver, he said. He yelled that directly at Roger's face, expressing his passion. Roger thought for a moment and said, "I'll give you 1 more year." Rusty started off Speed Weeks rough. He finished 12th out of 15 cars in the Busch Clash and blew up in his Gatorade 125. And just when you thought he could turn it around in the Daytona 500,
Capable to pull away a little bit. They're trying to bring it in. Trouble behind. Rusty Wallace is turning over.
Rusty Wallace, 20 feet in the air, spinning, crashing.
Well, I'll tell you, when they're running that close together and jockeying around position, you just know that things like this are going to happen. And a very unfortunate situation for Rusty Wallace.
Racing back to the line.
There's Jarrett. He gets in the line. The 66 car right behind Walter. Looked like they tapped. They touched right there, the 66. And then Rusty, he gets clipped right there, turns sideways, and we know what happened after that. The air gets out of the car. Yeah, it looked like the 66 and the 30. Got to look at Rusty's car, how high in the air. Real violent flips right here.
Roger's Ultimatum was looking like a bigger challenge than ever. However, a decisive win at Rockingham helped his efforts. Soon a 2nd, 3rd, and 5th through Darlington put Rusty 2nd in standings. Things were looking better, but nobody was expecting what was about to come next.
Mountains of eastern Tennessee. It was here in these majestic hills that tragedy has struck the motorsports world. On Thursday night at approximately 9:30 p.m., a fiery plane crash claimed the life of 38-year-old Wisconsin native Alan Kulwicki, along with 3 key members of his racing team. 48-year-old Hooters race team pilot Charlie Campbell of Peachtree City, Georgia. The 44-year-old director of sports marketing for Hooters, Dan Duncan of Taylor, South Carolina, and 26-year-old Mark Brooks of Atlanta, a driving force behind the success of this race team and son of Hooters CEO Robert Brooks.
Wallace will start from the pole today, and Rusty, a very emotional weekend for all of us. You're out in front of the field. The job keeps going. A little extra incentive, though, for you to win the race.
Well, yeah, I want to win it. I want to get in that victory lane and dedicate it to him and do everything I can for Alan and his whole family. Because good friend of mine, we grew up in the short tracks together, and we're all missing.
But Kyle Petty has a shot at second.
White flag comes out this time for Rusty Wallace. Not only is he going to win this race, he's going to pick up $60,800 in Unocal bonus money. This will be the 3rd time he's won that Unocal bonus. Second place will continue to watch for you as Earnhardt remains ahead of Kyle Petty. Here is Rusty Wallace in the 3rd turn, now the 4th turn, and the Food City 500 win is his. Rusty Wallace, Earnhardt 2nd, followed by Kyle Petty. Here is 4th position going to Davey Allison and Spencer, then Davey Allison, and then Darrell Walter.
Rex, what was that all about?
Well, I'll tell you what, I've had a lot of that Gatorade dumped on me before, but I don't know, it was a great day. I tell you what, it was all still, everybody was a little down, but we sat on the pole and we won the race, and we were in Alan Kulwicki's pit today, and he did it here last year in the same spot. So wherever you are, Alan, this is for you, baby.
And not unexpectedly, Rusty Wallace takes the Polish victory lap, as Alan Kulwicki called it. All the way around this half-mile racetrack, the crowd is on its feet. Maybe even those who cheer against Rusty Wallace are up saluting this victory lap because they know in reality it is for the fallen champion of this division, Alan Kulwicki, who was killed in a plane crash near Bristol on Thursday.
Yeah, I tell you, it's just, it's almost fearful, man. I tell you, because I wanted to win this race so bad. I was so mad when Alan got hurt, or got killed there, that I told the preacher before, I said, I'm going to try to win this thing for him. And boy, I was pretty intense today, and I did that. And boy, when I took that thing, I looped that baby around, and I did the Alan Kulwicki victory lap, and I was so proud for him. It's just Paul Andrews and his whole crew and his all his friends and stuff. This isn't for the Miller Daniel draft team, it's for you guys, because we miss you bad.
One more to go for Rusty Wallace, and he'll win his 24th career NASCAR Winston Cup race. 2nd straight, 3rd this season, and become the new points leader in NASCAR Winston Cup competition. Here's the Miller Genuine Draft Pontiac off the 4th corner. Rusty raises the hand and he wins the first Union 400, as he did after winning the race at Bristol. In recognition of his longtime friend and the fallen champion from NASCAR Winston Cup racing in '92, Rusty took a Polish victory lap.
Rusty Wallace has already taken the checkered flag on his cool-down lap here at Martinsville Speedway in Virginia, having won the Haynes 500. He's turning the car around again, and looks like he's headed for another Polish victory lap. And salute to Alan Kulwicki.
The next 3 races, Rusty would win all of them, each attributing them to Alan Kulwicki. It was the first time Rusty had seen cheers from the grandstands in nearly half a decade. But that wasn't the point of it. It was simply a selfless tribute to a friend, to a man that meant so much to him and others in the sport. With 3 wins in a row and 4 of the first 8 races won by him, Rusty went to Talladega, looking at possibly getting his first plate win.
Trying to get through. He's moved into a battle for 3rd position.
Earnhardt apparently is running out of gas in the turns.
He shuffled way back. Here they come off the 4th corner. Ernie Irvan leads them down now. Is he going to win the Winston 500? Jimmy Spencer is 2nd. They come through the tri-oval. Checkered is waving. Ernie Irvan wins, and Rusty spins and gets airborne and flips wildly right at the start-finish line. Very reminiscent of his accident at Daytona.
Another horrifying crash defined another race at a superspeedway for Rusty. This time flying through the air and still getting 6th. The man who showed up at the shop the very next day to inspect the car would be Bill Simpson, race car safety genius. The wreck would go on to inspire the invention of the roof flaps, something that to this day prevents the horrifying airborne crashes experienced in the first half of the season by Rusty. As the '93 season progressed though, Rusty would get in a streak of 4 awful races, the best finish being a 31st. He would eventually get a 5th at Michigan and an 18th at Daytona, but eventually he would win again at Loudon. However, unknowing to all in that race, it would be the last race of Davey Allison's career. The following day, Davey would be involved in a helicopter accident, dying the following morning. Once again, tragedy befell the sport. In Rusty's next win at Richmond in the fall of '93, he again took a Polish victory lap, this time tributing to Allen and Davey. Uniquely at this race, Rusty won at the strike of midnight due to rain, delaying the start of the event. The chassis he was using was one of the best he'd ever driven, and therefore this badass car was named Midnight. Rusty would go on to win Dover the next week, followed by a 2nd at Martinsville, another at North Wilkesboro, a 4th at Charlotte, and then topping off the year with 2 more wins at Rockingham and Atlanta. Rusty was just a touch too inconsistent to really challenge for the '93 title, but he did finish 2nd in points and win the season finale. With Dale Earnhardt winning the championship alongside Rusty in that race, the two lined up and were given flags after the race. Rusty would hold Davey's flag and Dale Allen's. Together, the 2 drivers took a backwards lap of tribute to their friends.
You can say here as we watch this final half lap in the Polish victory lap that Alan Kulwicki was so famous for. His flag is being carried by Dale Earnhardt, the champion. Davey Allison's flag is being carried by the winner of the race, Rusty Wallace. The crowd is cheering and waving in happiness, but you know that in many eyes there are tears.
Rusty, with this win, had just put up the best season of his career, but what was supposed to be a year of triumph turned into a year of dedication, a year of remembrance, a year of redemption for Rusty Wallace. Wallace led up 1993 with 8 wins in 1994. However, inconsistency put him 3rd in points. And over the 2 seasons of 93 and 94, Rusty accrued 18 total wins and 5,000 laps led. An incredible streak of dominance without a title. Rusty regressed to 2 wins in 1995 though, and followed up 5 wins in 1996. Soon Rusty was being drowned out in the mid to late 90s by a young Jeff Gordon. Rusty did not care for this young superstar on track, and Rusty would only accumulate 3 wins from 1997 to 99. The DuPont 24 team grabbed 30 during this time. It was finally by 2000 where he began to break out once again. It was during this time that he and Dale Earnhardt had become close friends. Ever since that day at Atlanta in 1993, the two drivers had created a bond that was unlike many in the garage. They raced hard with one another, and they resurged as championship drivers throughout the 2000 season. Dale would finish second in standings, whilst Rusty with 4 wins would collect 9 poles and finish top 10 in points once more. 2001 was looking to be another year for the Powells to make a late career charge, but nobody was expecting what would happen in the Daytona 500. Once again, tragedy befell the sport, and Rusty had lost another friend, another driver who he had shared so much with over the last 7 years. The man who he had paid so many tributes with had now also fallen. Rusty was now 44 years old, and nearing what many thought would be the end of his career. Youth was injecting itself into the sport at a rate never seen, and many thought he would be soon washed away for young guns. But he wasn't done yet.
One thing you can bet on Jeff Gordon, he is not going to give up. He's going to give it all he's got, and Rusty gets a little high off turn 2 over there. It's going to allow Gordon to close just a little. He's up at the closest he's been since we got into this run.
3 cars.
By 3.
That's it.
Darrell, all I think Rusty needs to do is run that same line through 3 and 4 right around the bottom. I don't think Gordon can get him.
Only way he can get him is if Rusty slips, and he's not going to slip.
Looking for his first win in 2001. Rusty Wallace
clear by 3.
Rusty Wallace wins in California.
Well, let's see if how he does on his donuts here. He's going to give all of you.
Look at the crewman has walked out to Rusty, and he's got an Earnhardt flag.
Oh, cool.
On what would have been Dale Earnhardt's 50th birthday, his old buddy and adversary, Rusty Wallace, will take that flag to victory lane. Keep in mind that Wallace made a similar victory lap to honor Alan Kulwicki when Kulwicki, then the defending Winston Cup champion, lost his life in an airplane crash at Bristol, Tennessee.
Well, these guys, they raced each other hard, they respected each other, and they were great friends.
Rusty's tribute to Dale marked what many thought would be his last win. He ran the rest of 2001 winless, and streaked through 2002 without much success either. 2003 was possibly the worst season of his career at Penske. On various occasions, he clashed with teammate Ryan Newman, consistently disagreeing with having a second car. In 2004, Rusty had gone nearly 3 years without winning, but at a sunny day in Martinsville, he got to celebrate one last time.
And it'll be the white flag for Rusty Wallace this time. First time he's seen it in 105 races.
Now all these fans are standing. Now all of them are waving to Rusty Wallace as he goes down the backstretch for the final time off into turn 3.
Gordon gives Newman the boot in turn 2. They're going to be side by side. Here they come to the flag. Rusty Wallace wins the Advance Auto Parts 500 for his 55th career victory. Rusty said earlier this season, donuts are for kids.
Look at his teammate Ryan Newman high-fiving him. There you go.
Rusty, in each of his victories, honors fallen comrades. This is what Alan Kulwicki christened as the Polish victory lap. Driver's side window and arm out to the fans. When Alan created this after his first win, he said, I wanted to do something that folks would remember me by. He didn't. And Rusty, who shared a sponsorship with Alan through part of their career, continues to honor his friend.
It feels good when you're riding around the driver's side, waving to the fans. You know, you like here, I like the way you say.
I think that's our crew chief's first win. He's going to enjoy this one.
You raced a lot of years against Rusty Wallace. You've got to know what this means to him, Darrell.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you get to that point in your career where, I tell you, you start off and you end up the same way. You wonder when you start if I'm ever going to win a race. And then when it kind of dries up a little bit, you say, am I ever going to win a race?
crowd loves it as much as he does.
You don't hear any boos from that crowd.
Dick Berggren.
The winner after almost 3 years. How many nights did you dream of winning another day?
Oh man, I'll tell you what, I got to tell you, it's been a long time coming. And we've got such good cars, and Larry Carter, we hired him, got the crew straightened out, and man, the whole hot rod started rocking and rolling again. It feels good to win again, it really does. I'm coming off that corner, and I'm thinking I'm pulling everybody. It's the old Bobby Labonte closing on me. I said, no, man, he can't be catching me, you know. But I had a great day today, man. What can I say? Finally back in the winner's circle. We had a great car. We've had a second, a fifth, and a win. We're on track, and we're going to win this damn championship, darn championship. I'm ready for it, man. I'll tell you, it's exciting.
Even when the moment was for him, Rusty would still do the Polish victory lap to tribute to Alan Kulwicki, still put his arm out the window and wave to the fans to tribute to Davey Allison, and still get out of the car and think about Dale Earnhardt. Time heals all wounds, and even Darrell Waltrip in the broadcast was happy for his rival. And it was shortly after that Rusty for 2005 would announce that it would be his last year of racing. He made the second chase that year, and made it all the way to Martinsville before his chances were eliminated. His last race came at Homestead, finishing 13th, and while happy with his career and enjoying a modest broadcasting career even up to today, Rusty has expressed recently that he thought he could have gone longer, that he was pressured into retiring for 2005. He even at one point apparently almost took an opportunity with RCR in the 07 for 2006, but was too late to claim said offer. Regardless of maybe retiring too soon or not, in 2013 his accomplishments in the sport got recognized in perhaps the greatest way possible.
Please welcome 2013 NASCAR Hall of Fame inductee, Rusty Wallace.
But before I close, I want to say one thing. There's one thing I learned about this sport. It's that the thing I learned, and I said it earlier, and I said it in the driver's meeting in 2005, the day I retired and walked out. I said, this is a privilege. This is a privilege to race in NASCAR. You don't have to do it. We're not making you do it. It's a privilege to race in NASCAR. And this has been a blessing for me to be able to be in this sport and do what I've done. And I really, really appreciate it. And I just hope that all the young drivers and the current drivers respect NASCAR as much as I respect it, and go out there and say the good things about NASCAR and help build this sport. And with that said, thank you very, very much for putting me in the Hall of Fame.